Hello and welcome to Go-to-Market Foundations. In this series, I talk through key concepts and challenges involved in developing innovative products and taking them to market. If you're a founder or part of a commercial team in a startup or SME, you'll probably already be familiar with many of these concepts, but I hope that the examples I give of how they apply in practice will be helpful. I also aim to explain these ideas in an accessible way, using clear language, helping the whole business understand your strategy and the rationale for it, promoting good teamwork and avoiding needless friction. I'm Alden. I'm a product strategy advisor at ValueLink Pro. This course is built on my 25 years of experience in taking innovative products to market as a software developer, product owner, and product manager. At VividQ, a key challenge was explaining the proposition and generating traction with our target customers, global brands and businesses hundreds or thousands of times our size. This process required care in the messaging, but most of all, it required care in building relationships and delivering on expectations. All businesses have the same fundamental shape to the roadmap. First, you develop a product, then you launch it, then there's a period of stabilization until you're ready to expand. And then finally, it becomes about how you respond to competition. In this video, I will be looking at growth and particularly at sales and three concepts to understand about how you reach and connect with the market. The concepts in each video in this series apply throughout the lifetime of your business, but that's particularly true for this video, because I've chosen to focus on something that will be a constant challenge, from develop as you build partnerships and find a lead customer, through to launch as you generate your first real revenue, and stabilize as you build the connections and define your strategy for growth, until you reach the key challenge for scaling a business: sales. First, I will look at the core process for sales, the role of trust, and how sales relationships are built. Then I'll look at the sales process and why you need it, and the cost and complications you risk if you don't carefully manage it. Finally, I explain the concept of a channel and how channels and partners can be used to multiply your sales reach. If you're in a commercial team or involved in the sales process, I'm sure you don't need to be told that sales is all about relationships. But the goal of this series is to introduce the key concepts in an accessible way and to provide a common language. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the principles that lie underneath techniques like education-led sales and structured selling. If you're already familiar, please feel free to skip ahead, but I remember my days as a developer when these principles were not clear to me. So it might be interesting to follow along and see where the world you take for granted is not shared by the teams around you, because it's often the root assumptions that are the hardest to explain. So the most important principle of sales is that customers pay where they trust. This is why brand is so important. Brand gives us something for our experiences and expectations to connect to. The more those expectations are delivered, the more trust, and the more likely you are to choose that option again the next time rather than trying another. Every interaction with a prospect asks them to put something they value at risk: their time, their attention, ultimately their capital, and thus all of the other things that they could have used that capital to acquire. Your features and benefits are the promise of what they can get in return for that capital. And if you've done your job well, that promise will look like an excellent deal to them, if you deliver on your promise. But will you? That's the bridge that you're asking them to cross. The question whether you're willing and able to deliver on your commitments. The more you're asking the customer to put at risk, the more load that bridge has to bear. The decision-making process moves through 4 stages. First, there's aversion programming, rules we've been taught and cultural conditioning to keep us out of danger, such as it's not a good idea to go for a walk in Wolf Forest by yourself at night, or don't eat mushrooms you don't know. We all learn a lot of these rules, and we couldn't survive without them. But they're simplistic, and the world is a much more complex than a simple rule like don't trust market traders can cover. Each person has their own aversion programming and their own tolerance for risk, which controls how quickly they move on to the opportunity. Before you can act on an opportunity, you have to see it. This is the stage of a conversation where you talk about features and benefits. Only once the customer is emotionally engaged with the possibility will they start getting into details. Every choice comes with complications and compromise, and this is where they arise. The longer the sales conversation, the more the initial excitement about the opportunity gets lost along the way. Some customers will be more detail orientated than others and will examine challenges more or less carefully. Resilience to challenges also varies. Only when the customer has moved past all of these stages will they commit to the deal. There's a common pattern to most, if not all, sales processes. It starts with a connection. This might be a market trader catching your eye, as in the example, or a chat at an event, or perhaps direct email marketing, or in B2C, it could also be an ad impression. But it needs to establish who you are. There can't be trust without something for it to connect to. Next, you offer something for a low or negligible cost, maybe their contact details or a little bit of their time. This offer is your chance to show how you deliver on your commitments. The closer it is to the expectations you have set, the more reason they'll have to believe you will deliver on your next offer. A log is laid across the river that will eventually become a bridge. And so the cycle continues. Each time you promise and deliver, the easier it is to trust your next offer, and the harder it is to pick a different option. Regardless of whether you're B2B or B2C, your growth is going to depend on how good you are at building trust with your customers. Once you've established a connection, you must first get past any aversion rules that they've learned that apply to you or your proposition. Then you need to establish an opportunity with relevant features and benefits. Finally, you must remove the challenges before the customer can commit. The more the customer is asked to commit, the more trust there needs to be. Trust is built by delivery and conformance. Each time a delivery conforms to the expectations that were set by the offer, trust grows, and a larger commitment can be made. Hence, strong sales relationships can be built by an iterative process, starting with small offers. But that iteration and that process of building trust, it takes time and it costs money. Even in B2C, where the cyclic process might happen in the user app and might be fully automated, there are still server and distribution costs involved. But for this section, I will primarily focus on B2B, where understanding and managing sales costs can be crucial to the success of your business, especially as it scales. In a B2B deal, the sales process typically involves people, demos, travel, direct costs that quickly become substantial, leaving aside the money you could have made by focusing on another, potentially better prospect. The first reality to confront is that much of the outcome is outside of your control. Is the prospect close enough to the need that you designed this solution to address? Can they afford it? Are there cultural or social factors, such as the aversion rules I mentioned previously, that will steer them away from it before you even have a chance to explain the benefits? Most prospects will not convert. The second reality to confront is the cost that you're going to incur along the way. The sale wouldn't have happened without the advertising, the trade show visits, the flyers, the meetings, the demos it took you to get there, and which it has more than paid for. But what about the prospects that didn't work out? How much did you spend on them before it became apparent that the deal was not going to close? At the start of the sales conversation, it's easy for both you and the prospect to get excited about the opportunity. You have a novel solution that looks like it will solve some real pain that they're experiencing. And as a startup or innovative SME, and especially as a B2B one, a single new customer can have a measurable impact on your P&L and potentially take off a lot of pressure from your investors. So you all want the deal to work. But what if a deal can't work? What if the solution simply costs more to deliver than the customer can afford to pay? You're not just throwing away the time and effort you're putting into the conversation, you're also sacrificing the progress you could have made with a more realistic prospect. But it's even worse than that. Sales often come with challenges, and if you're a B2B startup or an innovative SME, most sales come with challenges. Most of your prospects will be very aware that they're turning over tens or hundreds of times your annual recurring revenue. They'll be very aware how desperately you need the deal, so they know they have leverage and they'll use it to demand changes. This will happen at every stage of the pipeline. Using their leverage costs them nothing, and in the worst case, for them, is personally satisfying, while in the best case, it helps them in internal politics they're managing by putting the solution they're advocating for inside their business in the best possible light for their superior or whoever's going to be reviewing it. But if the economics were never right, and if the solution never was a good match for the actual need, all the work you've done to meet those requirements is wasted. Worse, you've complicated and confused your product and made it worse for all of the customers who do need it and can buy it in order to satisfy requirements that were never real. This is not a hypothetical scenario, not some theoretical failure that would never happen in practice, at least not to you. This is a pattern I've seen repeated in every business I've worked for. It's a very easy trap to fall into. So how do you avoid it? The answer is a sales funnel and qualification criteria. In the early stages, while you're still in develop and launch, you can probably manage with a much looser process. But as your business scales, sales costs begin to easily dominate. Even worse, they can slow your growth to a crawl, with the opportunity lost in all of that effort on doomed sales that could have been accelerating real business. So you need to take qualification seriously at each stage, validating the opportunity with the information you have before moving to the increased costs of the next stage. Information gathering requires an order of magnitude more effort than the highly automated tools for lead generation. As you move into validation and relationship building, travel and meetings begin to dominate, and the sales costs step up again. At each step, you need confidence that the prospect justifies the effort. What this will look like depends on your product and your business, but need, budget, access to decision makers will be common themes. In summary, the more effectively you can redeploy your sales effort from prospects that can't work out to new leads, the faster your business will grow. This is very difficult to do, especially if the business is performing worse than expected and the lead pipeline is thin. On the one hand, the further a prospect gets through the pipeline, the more effort has already been invested, and it's hard to discard that sunk cost. On the other hand, because sales depends so much on relationships, it's really hard to discard a strong relationship just because the product is a poor fit. And it's easy to keep looking for some modification or alternative product that will make it work. The worst outcome are changes that harm a valuable product for real customers in order to retain a relationship with a prospect that will never convert. This is an easy failure mode to fall into. Always be vigilant for it. After all of that heavy material, let's be a bit more positive by looking at how you can use channels and partners to multiply your sales effort. This is a powerful concept available to both B2C and B2B solutions, and it can have a huge impact on your sales. And it generally requires a bit of intelligence in your business plan, but not a massive amount of effort to implement. So let's start with some definitions. A channel is a way to reach and connect with your customers. A partner is a business that benefits from or otherwise has a stake in your success. A classic example of a channel is LinkedIn or X or email marketing or advertising, businesses, systems and tools, anything that you can use to reach out and make that initial connection with a customer. Channels separate into sales channels that you can use to get your goods or services to your customers and take payment for them, like the Apple App Store for an iPhone app, and marketing channels that you can use to inform prospects about the goods you have on offer. But in this series, my aim is just to introduce the core concepts, so we won't dwell on the distinction. The point is that this is a lot of bridges to build. In the first section of this video, I talked about trust and about how the heart of the sales process is relationship building. Here we see the consequence of that. To scale your business, you need to not just connect via a channel, you need to convert those connections into relationships, which means that as you enter the growth phase of your roadmap, the bandwidth of your sales team starts to become a limiting factor. This is particularly the case for a B2B proposition. B2C, instead of sales and direct engagement with prospects, you're probably using marketing to build the customer relationship via adverts, placement, influencer features, etc. Where you put the money and effort is different, and it scales a bit differently, but the problem is essentially the same. The obvious answer is more resources, more salespeople, more marketing. But that scales linearly, while growth you want is exponential. Maybe there's a better way. Introducing the channel partner. A channel is a route to your customers, and a partner is a business with a vested interest in your success. So a channel partner is a route to your customers who benefits from your success. The classic example is a reseller or a distributor. They have a network of customers already buying similar products, and they make their income by taking a cut of every good they sell. They've already built a relationship with your customers. Bob has been buying hammers and chisels from Toolshack for years. So when Toolshack adds your smart wrench to the display, Bob knows he can trust it to be good. Rather than having to build a relationship with each customer directly, you can start from a channel partner's brand. The stronger the relationship the reseller or distributor has, the more powerful and valuable this arrangement can be. Good channel partners can be very helpful in breaking into new markets. Obviously, you lose a little profit in the cut that the channel partner will take from the sale, but look at what you gain. When your salesperson talks to Bob the customer directly, a closed deal means a single sale, linear growth. But when your salesperson talks to channel partners like Toolshack, each closed deal means a new sales pipeline, exponential growth. Even if you're still in the develop phase of your roadmap, you should be looking ahead to growth and starting to plan which channel partners you will use to scale and how you will build the relationships you need with them. They're an essential part of your go-to-market strategy. What a channel partner looks like can vary massively depending on your industry and your product. As a product manager at Amino Communications, we sold hardware, TV set-top boxes, B2B to a large number of small operators, and so our distribution network was an incredibly important part of our sales strategy. That's an easy example. There are other ways for channel partners to benefit from just revenue share. Many industries have system integrators, for example. Their goal is to deliver a better solution faster and cheaper. If you can help them with that, they have a reason to promote you, even if they don't take a direct cut. And they already know the market and have relationships. In the consumer space, we've talked about distributors for physical goods, but what about brand partnerships? Imagine you have a circular economy solution, and an existing brand could improve their positioning with an eco-conscious audience by promoting you, while allowing you to benefit from the connection and relationships that they've built. In this video, I've looked at the role of trust in sales and how sales relationships are built. I've discussed the sales pipeline and the cost and danger of over-investing in prospects that can never work out, and how lead qualification can be used to manage this problem. Finally, I defined channels and partners, and I explored how you can use channel partners to multiply your sales bandwidth and prevent it from becoming the limiting factor in the growth of your business. In my previous talks, I've looked at key challenges in the develop phase, project versus product business models, the role of product management, and MVP. And in launch, I look at market fit, how to understand constraints on your pricing, and using features and benefits to maximize your value. In Stabilise, I look at the cost of quality and how to set the right level for your business, prioritization, and when to stick to the plan and when to pivot. And finally, in Foundations for Growth, I look at strategic agility and a technique for balancing the needs of your roadmap against tactical sales. In the final video of this series, I'll look at some key concepts when responding to competitive pressure, barriers to entry, and understanding your cost base. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you in another video soon.